time-restricted eating for shift workers, promise or peril? Shift work represents one of modern society's most profound disruptions to circadian biology, affecting millions of workers worldwide and carrying well-documented metabolic consequences. The prospect that time-restricted eating might ameliorate some of shift work's adverse effects has generated considerable interest, positioning meal timing interventions as potentially scalable solutions to a massive occupational health problem. However, the biological complexity of chronic circadian misalignment combined with practical constraints of shift schedules creates both opportunity and substantial risk that warrant careful consideration. The theoretical foundation appears sound. Shift workers experience desynchronization between their activity schedules and endogenous circadian rhythms, creating metabolic stress that manifests as increased diabetes risk, cardiovascular disease, and obesity. Imposing structured eating windows could theoretically provide temporal anchors that help stabilize disrupted circadian systems. Some preliminary evidence suggests that restricting eating to daytime hours, even when working night shifts, might reduce metabolic dysfunction by maintaining alignment between feeding patterns and hepatic circadian clocks. This approach prioritizes central circadian stability over immediate scheduling convenience. Yet implementation confronts substantial practical and biological barriers. Night shift workers who restrict eating to daytime hours must remain awake and active during biological night without caloric intake, a state that may impair alertness, performance, and safety. The hunger and fatigue associated with fasting during required work hours could increase accident risk in occupations where vigilance matters critically. Moreover, the social isolation of eating contrary to one's work schedule might reduce adherence and quality of life. Workers face the unenviable choice between optimizing circadian alignment and maintaining functional capacity during work hours. Alternative approaches that allow eating during work shifts but impose temporal structure face different challenges. Restricting eating windows to night hours during night shifts may prevent excessive caloric intake but potentially reinforces circadian misalignment by strengthening the discordance between feeding time and central clock phase. The metabolic consequences of this approach remain poorly characterized, with some data suggesting persistent metabolic dysfunction despite temporal meal restriction. The optimal strategy may vary by shift schedule regularity. Permanent night workers might adapt differently than rotating shift workers who experience repeated circadian disruption. The current evidence base, though growing, remains insufficient to support confident recommendations. Most studies involve small samples, short durations, and limited assessment of critical outcomes like workplace safety and long-term metabolic health. The heterogeneity in shift patterns, baseline health status, and individual chronotype further complicates interpretation. Warning signs emerge from reports of reduced adherence and well-being in some interventions, suggesting that time-restricted eating may prove incompatible with certain shift schedules or individual circumstances. Until larger, longer trials with comprehensive safety monitoring establish efficacy and identify responders, shift workers considering time-restricted eating should proceed cautiously, ideally under clinical supervision and with attention to workplace performance and safety metrics. The intersection of occupational demands and circadian biology demands solutions, but oversimplified applications of time restriction may create as many problems as they solve.